Welcome to Drams and Dragons, the podcast about fantasy, whiskey, and existential dread. We're going to be talking about some horror tonight,
Yeah.
some existential, historical. I don't even know what to call this book. How you doing tonight, man?
Hey, I'm hanging in there. And hey, listeners. I am tired, Gus. So tired.
Hmm.
But I'm hanging in there. I'm actually really excited to talk about the book. And yeah, describing it is difficult. It's like I don't know if you'd call it an emerging genre or it's something that probably existed, but I'm digging the different take on historical events thing. Um,
Hmm.
Kind of carried over from the Devils, but this is very
Yep.
different. Um,
Yeah, and if you're not clear on what it is from the title of the episode, we are going to be talking about Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman. He's the same author who wrote Black Tongue Thief, The Daughter's War. We're a big fan of his on the show, as you can probably tell from our, you know, going on and on about those books, which were
yeah,
both incredible.
yeah.
But this is something he did before the Black Tongue Thief stuff. And we're gonna dive into it. It's sort of his background as a horror
Hmm.
author.
Yep.
Uh,
It's where he started.
yep,
And it shows.
it
And
does.
yeah. Yeah, I still I've been losing a little sleep over it, to be honest.
It
But in a mostly good way. But
gets you thinking,
it does.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
You drinking anything tonight, Gus?
yeah. So before we get
All
into that,
right.
I'm going to have a little bit of the Westland Garryana.
What?
What?
Those are those two words I've never put together in my life.
Yeah, the Westland is the
Okay.
Westland distillery. So
Oh.
I did their Solum and I did their red wine cask. This
Cool.
is their Garryana. Crystal and I have already had a little bit of the bottle. You can tell.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'll tell you ahead of time. I actually really like it. This cool thing about this bottle, or about the liquid inside it, anyway. Cool thing about the Garryana is the oak that it uses is Gary oak.
Okay.
Gary oak is it's a different species of oak tree that is
Cool.
native to the Pacific Northwest. Westland is a Pacific Northwest distiller.
Okay.
It's a rare oak. It is you can't actually cut it down. It's protected.
Hmm.
You have to wait for the tree to fall down on its own,
Whoa.
at which point you can harvest it and make whatever you want from it. But it's worth noting the wood is very um, challenging to get. It's like a gnarled and
Yeah.
heavy on bark, and it's very challenging to get oak staves, like barrel staves,
Yeah.
from the wood, from the tree. And so it takes a lot of these to get a small amount of barrels. So this very, very special. Nobody else on the planet really has done this. Uh, and
Yeah.
there are some other oaks around the world, around the country that people have done this with, sort of special, rare, unusual oaks. Usually they don't work out this well.
Hmm.
A lot of them have some funky, interesting, different flavors. And a lot of the time what they do is um they'll mix the small amount of special oak whiskey in with a larger amount of more traditional whiskey. And that's what they've done here as well.
Okay.
Um, but there's enough of it that you get this sort of unique character that is in a more familiar context. It's very nice. Um, yeah, what are you having tonight, man?
Right on. I have some of my Talisker Storm.
Oh, well, that's a good one. So
Yeah. I know someone's got to
there you
do it.
go.
Someone's got to drink through the yeah, for those who don't know, I'm moving very the actually, I mean, we talked about it most episodes, but the long awaited cross country move is happening in like 3 weeks. So we gotta we're in that's why I'm so tired.
Lot
But
to do.
a lot to do.
Those cross country moves are a challenge.
They are. And I can't wait to get back to the the Westland. It's such a Pacific Northwest thing. It's like an episode of Portlandia, where they go to the restaurant and the fish has a name and stuff. Like that's what I miss that about the Pacific Northwest. And you get that with the whiskeys. The whiskey had the barrels had to die on the road. The tree had a name. That's what I want. And that gets me, man. It gets me. I'm so excited about your whiskey because that novelty factor we talk about, it's all novelty, man. It's a flavor that 99.9% of people in the world have never tasted. Because it has to come from that oak. So cool.
Now, this is the one that I'm going to be tasting tonight is the 8th edition of the Garryana they've done.
Okay.
They put these out. I don't know if they put them out every year. I don't think it's that regular, but they've put them out, every couple of years or whatever, something like that. And maybe it is every year. I don't know. I should look that up.
Yeah, I'll look it up here. I don't see editions so far, but I haven't looked too close.
Yeah, it's basically they just do different like releases of them. And the releases are often slightly different. They vary slightly from edition to edition. They just tweak things up a little bit with the casks that they mix in.
Mm-hmm. The taste masters play with it. Let's see. Yeah, I'm on their website. I see it's edition 9.
Yeah, it's the most recent one.
Released.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The one I'm tasting is 8.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So just looking at it in the light, it's fairly orange.
You think that's au naturel, or I think they add?
Oh yeah, I know it's natural. These guys don't do anything but natural. It could be like a red wine cask mixed in, just a little bit of that little sherry cask. I'm not sure what's in edition 8. I could look that up. Yeah, no non-chill filtered, no coloring added.
Nice.
That's the kind of distillery that Westland is.
Oh.
I'll tell you right off the bat, the nose that I get, there's a lot of chocolate in it. Mm-hmm. It's a very chocolatey nose. You get a little barrel oak.
Yeah, can you get the Gary oak in there at all? Is there any type of effect on the?
Yeah, it's the nature of the chocolate, I would say, is more of like a almost artificial chocolate, like like chocolate cereal, like what you get, the Cocoa Pebbles, Cocoa Puffs.
Okay.
And if you grew up with like health food parents, you might detect it maybe as a slight carob smell. If you ever had carob.
Yeah.
I don't like carob. I'll tell you that. I really don't like carob. Like the taste of it, the texture, it's sort of like fake chocolate, but the smell's not bad. And it's, there's a hint of that sort of the sort of artificial chocolate smell and I think that's all coming from that Gary oak. I do, when that sort of starts to fade away, I get a little bit of kind of a raisiny. I'm assuming they have some kind of sherry cask in here. Sort of starts to open up and get some dried fruit. Sort of raisiny and chocolatey are the two really predominant. And then that little bit of oak. This is a very nice smell. Very pleasant. Very, very different, unique. That kind of chocolate smell that it has is really, I just can't stress. It's very different from like other chocolate smells that I've got from whiskeys before. It's kind of a unique in that sort of almost artificial chocolate way.
So like Caribbean Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah.
In a good way?
But in a good way. Yes. But in a good way. It's not a bad smell. But it's a very different smell. Yeah. That dried fruit, raisin, maybe even dried pineapple. Yeah. I'd say dried pineapple, dried raisin is really like this rich undertone to sort of complement that chocolatiness.
Cool.
I'm going for a sip.
Okay. It's such a sweet, kind of like it's like a sweet nose.
Very, very sherry on the palate. All those dried fruits.
Maybe that accounts for the darker coloring there.
The spice, the sort of oak spice, that sort of is very prominent on the palate. So if you like oak spice, that's very strong in this. I do get some of that chocolate on the palate. But a lot of it's that sherry fruit. There's just a slight hint of bitterness that reads. It's not a bad thing in this case. Sometimes bitterness is terrible. In this case, it reads as dark chocolate,
Cool.
like bittersweet chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
The chocolate notes are just this really strong component of this whiskey, and I really dig it. When you get into the finish, it's really very strongly chocolate. It's a very chocolate heavy dram.
Mm-hmm.
Really nice, really pleasant. Yeah, it's just sort of this interesting every level. This is one of those whiskeys where like what you smell is what you taste.
Mm-hmm.
Like you smell dark chocolate, you smell chocolate and fruit, you're gonna get chocolate and fruit on the palate all the way through the finish. There's nothing that's a surprise from the smell. Mm-hmm. And it's really nice. It's really nice. I think the smell was a little fruitier and the palate maybe is a little chocolatier, especially with those dark chocolate notes. Really like it.
Cool.
I do detect a little bit of caramel on the palate as well. Mm-hmm. Man, that chocolate just lingers. That chocolate just hangs out at the end. Really mm-hmm. tasty. If you like chocolate, try Garryana, or at least try the 8th edition of Garryana. It's very chocolatey. And I do think that some of that chocolate is coming from the Gary Oak specifically. You can get chocolate in other whiskeys. I think it's coming from this. It's a very different, or it's definitely a different sort of chocolate expression, a different direction the chocolate is coming from like your average whiskey that has a little bit of chocolatiness to it. It's very nice.
Yeah. I haven't heard that description for any other whiskeys. I've never tasted that in whiskey. So
yeah. Really I'll tell you the first time I opened up this bottle, Crystal and I we just opened it up. We took, a little dram, and when I popped the cork, and immediately both of us were like Cocoa Pebbles, like,
cool.
And that has muted a little bit just from it being open, but it's still definitely a big part of this, and it's great. Yeah, really enjoy it. Highly recommend. Westland is doing some really, really, really cool single malts. Highly recommend you go pick them up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there we go. That's the review.
Right on.
All right,
man. Some good American single malts out there.
Mm-hmm. There are some really good ones.
By to you. Where's that distillery at?
It's in the Seattle area, greater Seattle area. Nice. There is a tasting room in Soto, so not that far from the stadiums. They have their big tasting room. You can get a whole experience there, and I haven't done that, and I still really need to go do that. Crystal and I keep trying to figure out a time to do it, and we just haven't yet. But it's on our list of stuff to do in the area.
Well, like 6 or 7 weeks, man. We just go do it together.
Hell yeah.
Hit up a tasting
room. Would love to do that.
Right on, man. Well, glad it was a good experience. It's tasty. Save me some.
Yeah, we'll do.
All right.
I don't think we're gonna finish this bottle in a month.
Yeah, so. I got too many good things to try. Well, cool. And I don't have a review for the Talisker Storm. It continues to be amazing. So, man, where do we start with this book?
Wow. Between Two Fires.
Yeah.
Christopher Buehlman.
I slept on this for a while. I started listening to the audiobook about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe longer.
Mm-hmm.
And the audiobook did not float my boat.
Gotcha.
The voice for the female lead character is off-putting in the audiobook. And so I grinned and bared it this time because I didn't want to spend money on a regular copy. But I probably should have just bought a regular copy because it's been a little difficult to get through. But man, it's good. I'm really enjoying it. How did you come to be interested in this? I mean, did you kind of just get turned on through Buehlman's other works?
Yep. That's exactly right. So the first thing that I'd ever heard of Christopher Buehlman was The Black Tongue Thief. And that was recommended to me. And I read everything about it and was like, oh, this sounds like a book I have to have. I went and
Yeah.
picked it up and read it, loved
And
it.
you got me into it, if I remember correctly. You
Yeah.
raved about
Yeah.
it.
I raved about
Mhm.
it. You read it. We all read it. It was fantastic. My daughter's work came out, read that. And then I was like, well, I just, I liked it so much. I liked those two books so much. I was like, well, I know he's this horror author,
Mhm.
right? Who was sort of delving into fantasy. And so I did a little reading and was like, well, this is his other sort of popular book, Between Two Fires, that was sort of that he was known for before Black Tongue Thief. But I'm not really, for all the genres that I do read, I don't read a lot of horror.
Mhm.
That's one genre I don't really go in for
I don't
usually.
either. Yeah, I've read some
You know,
Stephen King in my time and some like
yeah, and
Tim Koontz and stuff,
I've
but not
read a
really.
few things. Yeah, same.
Yeah.
So it was sort of outside my sort of normal comfort zone, normal wheelhouse in theory. Except then I
Mhm.
read somebody's description of it. This is just somebody online who wrote a kind of description of the book, and I was like, well, that just sounds like dark fantasy. That doesn't actually sound that much like proper horror. That just sounds like fantasy with a sort of historical fantasy with like a horror edge.
Mhm.
So I picked up the book, picked up the paperback, and then I had a bunch of time to read relatively recently and the motivation to do so and started in and I couldn't put it down.
Mhm.
Um, I basically read it straight through. I don't normally do that these days. I usually read in the evenings and when I've got some time for it. And in this case, I blasted through it.
Nice
It's been
man.
a while. It's been a while since I blasted through a book like that. And honestly, the last one that I can remember that I just went through that fast was probably The Daughter's War, right? It was probably
Mhm.
it was probably also Christopher Buehlman,
Yeah.
right? Like it just
Yeah, his pacing is very 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 quick. And that's what I've
mhm,
noticed. I haven't finished the book, but the pacing is pretty like it doesn't let you go really. You get
mhm.
really engaging scenes, you get kind of some downtime, really engaging scene. There's no like it's not like Abercrombie where you it's like a play where if it's the first act and
Yeah.
you're building up. And yeah, he's really good he builds suspense really well. And the setting is really what got me on this read around because the first time I didn't read far enough in, but
Mhm.
the setting like we talked about at the beginning, there's a genre I'm really coming to like, and uh, you see it in a lot of different things. And there's this mystery to the human past where um myth and antiquity kind of mixed together, and we don't really know what things were like because the written word hasn't passed down everywhere. But that's the basic premise of this book. It's that the events that surrounded the Black Plague were actually spiritual, and there was a real spiritual war happening, and it manifested in the real world.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a cool take on that. And I really like that, man, because it takes something you think you know and it turns it on its head a little bit. And that's not even counting just the visceral, like it's kind of it's like an end of the world book. It's
Mhm.
describing what it's like to be living through an apocalypse.
Yeah.
So it's got that thing going for it. But yeah, man, it's the setting just got me right in
Yeah.
there.
I think the setting popped for me. I
Mm.
also I that he did a really good job. If this was just if you omitted the spiritual and sort of fantastical stuff that's in this book, it would be an incredible historical fiction that would still leave you filled with a feeling of existential terror because of the
Yeah.
way that society is crumbling as these characters, you know, move through essentially the plague, the Black Death, countryside of France.
Mhm.
I think it would have been just an absolutely like soul crushing, terrifying thing to live through, and he does an incredible job writing it. I took classes where we went over the Black Plague in college, like history classes. I've read all kinds of books and sources from that period, um, it's a period that I'm really interested in history wise. I have a history major
Mm-hmm.
and then a religious studies minor. This book is like made for me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so like, but it was just an incredible portrayal just on the history side. It was an incredible portrayal of this world, this setting.
Mm.
And then, of course, you add in all these sort of religious, fantastical horror elements to that. And it was just stunning.
Yeah, and that was the stunning part to me too with those two categories. The I mean, the idea of, because when you learn about it, you're like, okay, 3/4 of the population was dead.
Yep.
3 in 4 people, and that's a number, and history is great at using numbers and figures and stuff. But good, good, good literature kind of brings that alive.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the stunning part to me was like just walking through the countryside, and there's these fields that haven't been processed into grain. Um, there's the human element where the people, there's all these ideas about how the plague travels through eye contact,
Mm-hmm.
or yeah, there's these different little ways that the people are trying to make sense of it, and it brings it alive in a way that I've never really felt before. Because yeah, I mean, it's in popular culture, everybody knows about the plague, but I don't know if you've ever actually sat around and thought about what it would mean to live in a world where 3 out of every 4 people were dead.
3 out of every 4 people, to be clear, all over Europe,
Yeah.
and some places were not hit nearly as bad as others. And so the reality is that in the hardest hit places, you're looking at 9 out of 10 people being dead. Um, and so the result of that is this intense loneliness
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's gone. This just absolute empty landscape that is nothing's functioning. There's just
Mm-hmm.
people existing and starving to death because, as you said, crops are being left in the field to rot. What is morality at that point? What is, there's
Yeah.
big questions asked in the book, right? What is morality? Does there are people who are basically despairing and saying, well, there's just no God, right? Like God hasn't, and the whole book is basically about like, well, God hasn't answered, right? God hasn't
Mm-hmm.
responded.
Mm-hmm.
Do this horrible thing and God hasn't responded. This horrible thing and God hasn't responded. And you'll get to the end, and I don't want to spoil things. I don't want to spoil the answer. I don't want to spoil the end of the book, but like there's these really rich philosophical questions asked throughout the book. I don't know if they are really solidly answered in the thing, but it's these questions that the people who were alive then were not just asking but living through, right? The very real way. There's
Mm-hmm.
an incredible portrayal of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and he did it so well with the characters. Like, like one of the lonely parts of it was no one. I mean, there's a couple different stories with it. Like one of the characters has a complicated past that where he sees himself as sinful and flawed, but also everybody who witnessed that is they're dead and gone.
yeah,
There's no one to judge him except for a creator figure. And then,
yeah, except
yep,
for
yep,
God and himself, right?
yeah.
Like that's yeah.
So that's that human element. And then another character, he has these interesting kind of physical marks of his, and then he basically shared a battlefield that's a famous battle with other
Mm-hmm.
people, and this distinctive scar kind of comes up a couple times that you only get from being hit by a British arrow, like a longbow arrow, and that's kind of an interesting way to show like the ties that bind you to people. Um, and there's some really cool elements of like humans working together and finding their humanity, and then there's these awful moments of like inhumanity and butchery and just badness. And the cool part is then he links that all together with that spiritual element where there's literal demons infesting humans and
Yeah.
making a mockery of God's creation and stuff like that. And it's just cool. And yeah, you get these little chapters
Mhm.
with the demons or with fallen angels.
Yeah, where you get a lot of sort of information, high level information,
Yeah.
sort of briefly, and then you dive back into that world at the sort of human level, at the level of these characters. And then there's these miracles going on. One of the characters is this girl who not sure is are they miracles or are is it witchcraft, right? Is she,
Mm-hmm.
they say miracles, it's just strange happenings, right? Right? Supernatural things. Um, and it's a very real question for the characters. Like, are these miracles or is this girl cursed or a witch or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
They don't know. Yeah, man, there's a
Yeah.
lot of really rich philosophy and history and, you know, religious, theological questions and apologetics and all kinds of stuff that I thought was just, really, yeah, really rich.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on it. Yeah, the book is good. I I enjoy the richness of it. Yeah, I like all the elements to it. I feel like my audiobook experience is really messing with stuff a little bit. I'm curious, like,
Mm.
so for you reading the regular book, do you have any thoughts on the flow of it or the characterizations? How did old Buehlman do in his earlier days?
He tends to be an author who moves you through the world. How I was complaining
Mm,
about the Devils, where I was like, I didn't like how he's moving past
mm,
things so quickly.
mhm,
Well, Buellman tends to be an author that really he writes journeys in the say similarly to what the Devils is, where you're moving across the world. Um, I think this is an example of that done well. Each stop is very meaningful and it gives you insight into the world, into this place. It's like he stops you at this place and you like really dive into it. You get into the characters, you get into but you get into the place and you feel really grounded and rooted, even
mhm,
though the pacing is this relatively quick passage through the world.
mhm,
I liked the length of the chapters. They're
mhm.
pretty short, they're pretty neat and tight.
Which I appreciated
Um,
because they're kind of uncomfortable and with
mhm.
some gnarly stuff. It's very metal. I
Yeah.
sent you a couple like, oh, it's a metal chapter,
Oh,
you know.
yeah. Yeah.
But
The
no,
one, the
no,
one that you sent me that text about where the metal thing was like, yeah, that's a heavy chapter.
yeah.
It's got some really heavy subject matter.
Hmm.
And it's not the only one. It's not the only one.
Oh no, but
Far
dude,
from it.
but that's the cool thing. Like if you're hearing the way to illustrate that is like every time we would talk about it, I know I was behind you, but it's very easy. I'd say, oh yeah, we just got to this place,
Mhm.
and every place I told you was a very distinctive part in the story that just like oh, really
Yeah.
sticks out. So I really like that about him because some books, and even with the Devils, as much as I love the Devils, I don't really. I remember a few scenes,
Hmm.
but they didn't have the full color that these do because he didn't spend enough time in there. I
Yeah.
remember the relationships more in that book, but the settings in this
Hmm.
one, um, and the distinctiveness, and maybe it's that horror writing too. Like there's that scene with the mouse mother who sees the weird tentacle creature coming into the barn,
Yeah.
and it's
That was
just
that was interesting. Yeah,
it's
that was
right.
wild.
It's kind of a weird perspective shift.
Yeah, but it worked, right?
Yeah, it worked.
Like,
And then do you remember there's a scene too? So it was kind of after they left the first setting and they're moving on.
mhm.
They talk about there are these guards and some of the leftover landed gentry people who had holed up in the castle. They
Yeah.
decided to go poke around, and it's like watching Contagion or something like one of those Contagion movies because
Hmm.
they're like, yeah, and the guy he just poked a nondescript kind of part of the hay, which happened to have a little bit of bubonic plague stuff in it. It's like before
Yeah.
long, everybody was dead. So he continually stokes the fires to
Hmm.
keep it warm. The two fires, you might say. He stokes it. I think she is like a god touched person or something. I don't think she's a witch lady. She's got an angel that
Hmm.
seems to be helping her. but we don't know the nature of the angel.
There are bad angels and good angels, right? There's
Yep.
yeah. I mean, like you said, the sort of background to this whole thing is that it's the spiritual battle, right? It's literally
Hmm.
angels and fallen angels fighting their heavenly war, and the plague and everything in it is a byproduct of that, essentially. So yeah, so there's
Yeah, and there's
angels and
temptations too.
yeah.
Notice the two
Hmm.
fires. Yeah, that's kind of the theme that's popped up too. There's been temptations for. There's been several, well, at least two scenes I can think of so far that I've had where both of the non-girl characters have been tempted or something's tried to coerce them into doing something, and that's a cool philosophical thing too because their free will, their ability to make their own decision, played
Mm.
into it. Um, but yeah, even that's why I like the book, man. Like when you talk about the book, when extra stuff comes out and you appreciate it more, like that's a sign of a good author. There's just so much. There's a lot of meat there to chew on and think about. Is there anything you didn't like?
I did. I will say, and without getting too much into it, I thought
Mm-hmm.
some of the sort of last quarter of the book, the last sort of the final act, some of it got a little bit conceptual and philosophical and theological to a degree, which dragged it a little bit back from being like a 10 out of 10,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was still excellent, but that just, it pulled it. That if I have any criticism of the book
Mm-hmm.
at all, it's that pulled it back from being like a 10 out of 10 to being like a 9 out of 10.
Mm.
That would be my one note.
Gotcha.
Other than that, I don't really have a lot of criticisms of the book. It
Cool.
was that was fantastic. I would
I
just
don't
say
think I do
that the
either.
the end can get I think could for some people especially the end could get a little sort of like what's going on. I don't know if you're not somebody who's like, oh really, like I don't know, if you're it's not a, I would say this book is not a, it's sort of the opposite of the Devils in some
Mm.
ways,
Ooh.
where the Devils is like it's kind of popcorn, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
fun. It's a popcorn movie. It's like a action flick kind
This
of,
one's
right? Like
not.
it's this is not. This is a thinking book. You're gonna have to think. You're gonna have to use your brain. You're gonna have to
Yep.
use your brain an awful lot. Um, and if you're not familiar with things, there's a lot of references that might go over your head about Thomas Aquinas or the Cathars or different, you know, medieval European or Abelard and Eloise and like
Certain
there's different
battles and yeah,
certain Cressy and like certain battles and like
yeah,
there's if you're not sort of steeped in medieval history, you might struggle or have to look things up. Just say that.
yeah, yeah. That was going to be my take on it too. If you are not, yeah, if you're not kind of grounded in in your dad history, it'll be a little bit of
It's not even
challenge.
dad history. It's just your medieval
It's for me,
history.
man. I don't know
Well, some
anything
of
with
it's dad,
war
some of
and
it's well, okay, that's fair. Like Cressy and the Longbowmen, that's dad history, right? Like
yeah.
Agincourt and
I don't know, learn about
you
the
know,
feudal system too, kind of,
yeah,
or the
yeah.
French, the French, you know.
There's definitely some of that. You're right. There's definitely some of that, but I think there's also some stuff like dad history would not include church fathers or church theologians and the
Yeah,
Cathars and
that's
the
true.
heresies and the sort of more obscure stuff like that. I
Yeah,
think
Middle Ages
yeah,
isn't always that history. I would say that.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's complicated and but there's definitely some if you're familiar with your dad history,
Hmm.
you probably get it. But there's stuff that's definitely beyond that. That's another level deep
Yeah.
in medieval history. If you're not familiar with your medieval history, you're going to have to look up a lot of terms,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. Probably.
I went to
Yeah.
school for this, so I'm familiar,
Yeah.
but a lot of people might not be.
Right. Yeah. And the religious side of it too. I thought it was nice. It wasn't. I didn't feel the same about the religious side of it. I didn't feel like it was inaccessible to people. Really, the concepts are kind of just put out there. It's like here you have the creator or the god. You have like
Mhm.
good angels, you have fallen angels. Fallen angels do bad stuff, and they're kind of battling and they're trying to
Mhm.
affect the will of the people. It's not too complicated.
That part, yeah, no, that part's not complicated at all.
Yeah.
How it relates to the story. I'm just talking about references
Oh no, I was just saying, yeah, in counterpoint.
deeper. Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
no, that's fair. He did a good job. He did do a really good job. You're right about that.
Yeah. That didn't feel.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I haven't felt preached to at all in it, which is nice.
Hmm.
Um
I didn't feel like he was preaching particularly. I felt
no.
like he had a message, but it wasn't like it wasn't preachy.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same. And that's one of the nice differences with Abercrombie's book too. It's a very different book in tone too, because it's so far it's a hopeful one.
Hmm.
Um, Good horror, I think, has to have hope to provide contrast to the desolation and the horror and the dread. You have to have that hope in there,
Yep.
or else it's the road and it's just depressing.
Yeah, this is not the road. This is not the
No.
road. And I really
Yeah.
appreciate the road for what it is.
Mhm.
But this is not that. There is hope for sure. And
Yeah.
there is it is not grimdark, even though it's horror and it's very dark and you have this sort of sense of existential dread for a lot of the book. There is hope.
Yeah. Maybe not hope for many of the characters. Like I would say too, if you're reading this, well, I don't even want to say
Hope for
that.
the world.
Yeah, hope for the world. Maybe not the ancillary characters. Let's just say don't get attached to most of them.
Yeah,
It's a brutal world
definitely.
still. Um, and yeah, there's only been one. Oh, let's see, the scene with the statues in Paris. The the with the
Mm-hmm.
door
Oh, I
knocking
know.
and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, with the which I won't spoil it, but yeah, there's some really stand out like that's all I could do. Just metal. It's like
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah.
Um, and that I love to see because that's what I really liked about the Daughters War, and
Mm-hmm.
I the like with the biters and how just metal they were. And it's I
Yeah.
really like a good I like a good bad guy. I like a good we're too Disneyfied sometimes where our bad guys like have to have backstories or they have to be redeemable and it's refreshing sometimes to see like kind of a black and white like this is some evil weird janky stuff going on and you definitely get that in the book.
You do for sure.
Yeah.
Man, I think I cannot wait to read what Christopher Buehlman's got next, whatever that is, whenever that is.
Dude's on fire. Yeah.
Is.
Yeah. He's great. I have no idea. Is he even working on other stuff? Is he one of those guys who does like a updated thing? Like,
I mean, he's definitely not done with the Black Tongue Thief world. So there were some
cool.
comments about he needed to write the Daughters War and get that backstory done before he could write the next book.
Mm-hmm.
Was my understanding.
Gotcha.
So,
Well, until then, I'm looking up his. So right after this book, he wrote and I actually own this one too. It's on my list. It's called The Necromancer's House that he wrote a year after. Before that, he wrote another horror book called Those Across the River. Let's see, after The Necromancer's House, The Lesser Dead. So he's got at least 3 books there,
mhm.
and one more called The Suicide Motor Club. So if anybody just can't wait on the next book, they got to get some Buehlman. Got four books written, 3 of them written after Between Two Fires. So, and apparently he's a comedian. He's from Florida,
Yep.
so he's very
You should
multi.
follow him. You should follow him if you're on Blue Sky. You should follow him on there.
Oh, is he good?
He's on there.
Yeah, is he post?
He posts. Yeah, he posts.
All right, we check him out. Well, yeah. Well, I don't know. You feel like we've gone over most of what you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool. And I would say if it's not obvious, I can't recommend them enough. It's awesome. It's a good book.
Yeah,
I will
yeah.
say, yeah, if you're sensitive to death and different uh, diverse groups of people dying, Maybe be careful about when you read this book.
Yeah, it's heavy,
It's heavy.
subject, very heavy subject matter.
Yeah.
It's very heavy.
If you want popcorn, go read The Devils. Or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, if you want to go read a fun, sort of slightly dark, dips its toe into dark, fun adventure action, then go read The Devils. You want something with some real heft and weight and gravitas, read Between Two Fires by Christopher
Yeah.
Buehlman. Yeah.
Right on.
Well,
It's that time.
thank you all for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope to see you on the next one. Have a good night.
Stay gold. I went high with that one. Why did I do that?
Stay gold.
Stay gold.